After watching folks for most of my life, I've noticed something. The ones who understand animals best are usually the ones who've been hurt by people. They learn to read what isn't said, to wait when others push. I saw this truth play out once, in a dusty corral in Arizona, back when patience was the rarest thing a man could own. Dust exploded where Billy Dawes hit the ground. 25 men now. 25 failures. The black stallion stood motionless at the corral's center, sides barely heaving. Around the fence, the laughter had gone quiet, that uneasy silence when entertainment turns into something uncomfortable. On the top rail sat a large woman in a sun-bleached dress, arms folded, face like stone. The townspeople had been mocking her all week, the crazy widow with the impossible challenge, but she never flinched. Her eyes stayed fixed on the horse. The horse watched her back. Then, at the corral's edge, a pair of boots appeared, worn through at the soles, patched with rawhide. The boots of a man who had nothing left but time. Luke Harper had arrived. We love hearing from you. Drop a comment and let us know where you're watching from today. And if these stories bring you a little peace, we'd be grateful if you subscribed. Most of our viewers haven't yet. And your support helps us keep sharing. Luke didn't move closer. He stood at the edge of the crowd, saddlebag over one shoulder, watching. The stallion was something. Pure black. Coat dull with dust, but the muscle underneath that was real. 16 hands at least. The animal held himself like he knew exactly what he was worth. No pawing, no pacing, just still. Watching the crowd the way a man watches cards being dealt. The drunk beside Luke elbowed him. Breath like sour mash and tobacco. 25, the man said. 25 tried. Not one lasted a full minute. Luke said nothing. His eyes moved from the horse to the woman on the fence, Martha Hale. He'd heard the name at the general store. Widow. Ran a ranch north of town. The men at the counter had laughed when they said her name. Called her crazy. Called her worse. She didn't look crazy. She looked tired. The kind of tired that settles into bone and doesn't leave. Her dress had been blue once. Now it was the color of dust and too many washings. Her hands gripped the fence rail, knuckles white, fingers thick from years of work. She hadn't looked at the crowd once. Hadn't acknowledged the laughter, the jeers, the drunk shouting suggestions about what she really needed. Her eyes stayed on the horse. The horse's eyes stayed on her. Something passed between them. Luke couldn't name it. But he'd seen it before in men who'd lost too much, in animals that refused to let go of a place where someone had died. $100, the drunk said. Louder now. $100 to ride that devil for 10 minutes. You thinking about trying, stranger? Luke watched the stallion shift weight. Left rear hoof lifted, set down again. The ears rotated toward the barn behind the corral, then back. The barn doors were closed, padlocked, rust on the chain. I'm looking for work, Luke said. The drunk laughed. Ain't no work here. Town's dying. But there's easy money if you got the guts. Easy money. Luke almost smiled. Nothing about that horse was easy. The animal wasn't wild he'd seen wild. This was something else. Martha climbed down from the fence. Slow, deliberate. She walked toward the gate, and the crowd parted without being asked. She stopped 3 feet from the stallion. Said something too low for anyone to hear. The horse's head dropped. Just an inch. Just for a moment. Then Martha turned and walked toward the house, alone. And the stallion watched her go the way a dog watches a door that won't open. The crowd thinned. Men drifted toward the saloon, already retelling the story, already making it bigger than it was. Billy Dawes limped away without looking back. His friends clapped his shoulders, laughed too loud, bought him whiskey to drown what everyone had seen. Luke stayed. The corral emptied. The dust settled. Late afternoon light stretched long across the packed earth, turning everything the color of rust. A few chickens scratched near the water trough, somewhere behind the house. A windmill creaked metal on metal. Slow and tired. The stallion hadn't moved, still standing at the center of the corral. Head turned toward the house where Martha had disappeared. His tail flicked once, twice. Then nothing. Luke set his saddlebag on the ground, rolled his shoulders. His back ached from 3 days of walking. The soles of his boots had worn through again. He could feel every pebble, every crack in the hard earth. He walked to the general store, bought a piece of salt pork wrapped in paper, a handful of crackers, a tin canteen of water. The shopkeeper, a thin man with spectacles and ink-stained fingers, watched him count out coins. "You new in town, passing through, looking for work. If there's any..." The shopkeeper shook his head. "Nothing here. Brennan's ranch is hiring, but he's particular about who he takes. The widow's place is falling apart, but she won't hire nobody. Too proud." Luke pocketed his change. "The widow with the horse? Martha Hale." The shopkeeper lowered his voice, though the store was empty. "Her husband died 3 years back. Heart gave out. Found him in the barn with that stallion standing over him like a guard dog. Horse hasn't let anyone ride since." Luke looked out the window. The Hale Ranch sat on a rise north of town. He could see the roof line, the weathered barn, the corral where the black horse still stood. She posed that challenge herself. 3 days ago, $100 to anyone who can ride that animal for 10 minutes. 25 men tried. 25 men hit the dirt. The shopkeeper adjusted his spectacles. "Some folks say she's gone soft in the head. Grief does that. Others say she's looking for something." "Looking for what?" "Nobody knows. Maybe she doesn't either." Luke nodded, picked up his supplies. The door creaked when he pushed it open. "Stranger," the shopkeeper called, "a word of advice. Stay clear of Colt Brennan. He's got his eye on that widow's land. Doesn't take kindly to competition." Luke didn't answer. He stepped into the street, the sun low now, shadows stretching east. He found a spot by the creek that ran along the edge of Martha's property. Cottonwood trees gave cover. The water moved slow, brown with silt, but cool when he cupped it to his face. He ate the salt pork cold, chewed the crackers until they turned to paste in his dry mouth. The light faded. Purple, then gray, then the deep blue that came before full dark. He walked to the corral. The stallion was still there, standing now at the far end, near the locked barn. His head came up when Luke approached, ears forward, nostrils flaring. Luke stopped at the fence. Didn't climb it. Didn't reach through. just stood there, arms loose at his sides, breathing slow. The horse watched him. Luke watched back. Minutes passed. 5, 10. The stars came out one by one, scattered across a sky so wide it made a man feel small. The stallion's ears rotated. Forward, then back, then forward again. His weight shifted, right front hoof lifted, set down. One step toward Luke, then another. Then he stopped, 8 feet away, close enough that Luke could hear him breathe, close enough to see the dust caught in his mane, the old scars on his chest, the way his muscles tensed beneath the skin. Luke didn't move, didn't speak, just breathed. The horse held his ground, not retreating, not advancing, just waiting. From the house, a lamp flickered on. A shadow moved behind the window. Martha, watching. Luke felt her eyes on him, even though he couldn't see them. He stayed another 10 minutes. Then he picked up his saddlebag and walked back to the creek. He didn't sleep well. The ground was hard, and the night was cold, and his brother's voice kept drifting through his dreams or fragments, nothing clear. At dawn, he returned to the corral. The stallion was already waiting, standing at the same spot, 8 feet from the fence, as if he'd never left. Luke sat down, back against the lowest fence rail. The wood was rough through his shirt, splinters catching on the worn fabric. He didn't climb over, didn't reach through the slats. "Morning," he said. Low, barely more than breath. "Cold one. You feel that? Gets in the joints." The stallion's ears flicked forward. Luke pulled his knees up, rested his arms across them. The sky was turning pink at the edges, the stars fading one by one. Somewhere in the distance, a rooster crowed, thin and hoarse, like it was too tired to try harder. "I ain't here to ride you," Luke said. "Just so you know. Got no stake in that contest of hers. I'm just—" He paused, let out a breath that fogged in the cold air. "Hell, I don't know what I'm doing. Talking to a horse, I guess." The stallion took 2 steps closer, stopped. 7 feet now, maybe 6. Luke could see the individual hairs on the horse's muzzle, the way his nostrils widened with each breath, pulling in scent, testing it. Old scars crossed his chest, 3 of them, parallel, healed white against the black coat, barbed wire, maybe, or a mountain lion, years ago. "You've seen some things," Luke said. "I can tell." The horse's head dipped, just an inch. His ears stayed forward. Luke talked. About nothing important, the color of the sky, a coyote he'd heard in the night, the way the creek water tasted like iron and old leaves. He kept his voice even, his body still. No sudden movements, no demands. An hour passed. The sun crested the ridge, spilling gold across the corral. The stallion stood 5 feet away now, close enough that Luke could hear the soft grinding of his teeth, the rhythmic pull of air through his lungs. "You're waiting for someone," Luke said. "Aren't you?" The horse blinked, slow, heavy-lidded. "Yeah, I know how that feels." From the house, a door slammed. Luke didn't turn. He heard the footsteps, heavy boots on hard-packed earth. deliberate, unhurried. He smelled wood smoke and lye soap and something else. Something like flour and bone-deep fatigue. "You're on my property." Martha Hale's voice was flat. No anger in it, just fact. Luke stood, slow. He removed his hat. His hair was plastered flat with dust and old sweat, and he knew he looked like what he was, a drifter, with nothing to his name. "Yes, ma'am. I apologize for that." She stood 10 feet away, arms crossed over her chest, up close. She was bigger than she'd looked on the fence's broad shoulders, thick wrists, hands that had seen decades of work. Her face was weathered, lines carved deep around her eyes and mouth. But her eyes were sharp, taking his measure the way a buyer sizes up livestock. "You here for the challenge?" "No, ma'am. I'm looking for work. Any kind. Ain't hiring." "I understand." But he didn't leave. He looked at the horse still standing 5 feet from the fence, still watching, then back at her. "That horse looks tired," Luke said. "The kind of tired that don't go away with sleep, like he's been waiting for something a long time." Martha's jaw tightened. The muscle jumped beneath the weathered skin. "You some kind of horse doctor?" "No, ma'am. Just a man who's worn that look himself." Silence. The wind pushed dust between them, swirling around their boots in small eddies. A hawk circled overhead, its shadow sliding across the corral. Martha studied him. His hands calloused, scarred across the knuckles, nails cracked and dirty. His boots held together with rawhide and stubbornness. The way he held himself, no puff, no swagger, no performance. Her eyes moved to the stallion. The horse hadn't retreated, hadn't pinned his ears or bared his teeth. He was just standing there, 5 feet from the fence, closer to a human being than he'd been in 3 years. Something shifted in her face. Luke couldn't name it. "North fence needs mending," she said. $2 a day, meals included. You sleep in the tack shed, not the barn. You don't touch that horse unless I say so." "Yes, ma'am. And if you try anything foolish, you'll shoot me." I figured. Almost her mouth twitched. Not quite a smile, but close. "Breakfast is at 5. Don't be late." She turned and walked back toward the house. Her boots raised small clouds of dust with each step. At the door, she stopped. Her hand rested on the frame, fingers curled against the weathered wood. "What's your name?" "Luke Harper." She didn't turn around. "You got people." Luke Harper. A beat. The hawk's shadow crossed between them. "Not anymore." Martha nodded once. She didn't say sorry, didn't offer condolences. People who've lost everything don't need words. They need work. 5 o'clock. The door closed behind her. Luke stood alone in the morning light. The stallion was still watching, ears forward, dark eyes unblinking. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Then Luke bent down, picked up his saddlebag, and walked toward the tack shed. Behind him, the horse followed along the fence line, step for step, matching his pace. Luke didn't look back, but he heard it, the soft thud of hooves on packed earth, the quiet rhythm of an animal choosing to follow instead of flee. And from somewhere inside the house, barely audible through the closed door, came another sound. Martha Hale was crying. The tack shed smelled of old leather, saddle soap, dust, and mouse droppings. A single window let in gray light. The space was small, a cot against one wall, a wooden trunk at its foot. bridles and halters hanging from hooks, a cracked mirror above a tin basin. Luke dropped his saddlebag on the cot. The mattress was thin, stuffed with straw that had gone flat years ago. Better than the ground. Better than nothing. At 5 o'clock exactly, he knocked on the kitchen door. Martha opened it without a word. She was dressed the same as before, blue dress faded to gray, apron tied at her waist, sleeves rolled to the elbows. Her eyes were dry now, no sign of what he'd heard through the door. The kitchen was small but clean. A cast iron stove against one wall, a wooden table with 2 chairs, a window that looked out toward the corral. The smell of coffee and bacon grease hung thick in the air. She set a plate in front of him. 2 eggs, fried hard, 3 strips of bacon, crisp at the edges, a biscuit that looked homemade, golden brown on top. Luke sat, picked up his fork, paused. "Thank you, ma'am." Martha poured coffee into a tin cup, set it beside his plate. She didn't sit down, didn't eat, just stood by the stove, arms crossed. Fence posts are stacked behind the tack shed, tools in the shed. North pasture's about a mile out. Follow the creek. "Yes, ma'am." "Water pump by the well needs fixing too. Handle's loose. You know pumps. I can figure it out." She nodded once. Short. Luke ate. The eggs were good, better than anything he'd had in weeks. The coffee was strong enough to strip paint. He didn't complain. The work was hard. The ground was rocky. The old posts rotted through. The wire rusted and brittle. He dug holes until his shoulders burned, set posts until his palms split and bled, stretched wire until his arms shook. He didn't stop, didn't rest. The sun climbed, peaked, began its slow descent. Sweat soaked through his shirt, dried, soaked through again. Dust coated his throat, his eyes, the creases of his skin. By late afternoon, he'd finished 1/8 of a mile. Not fast, but solid. The kind of work that would hold. That evening, he walked to the corral. The stallion was waiting. Same spot. 5 feet from the fence. Luke sat down. Talked. About the fence posts. About the hawk he'd seen circling the north pasture. About the way the light hit the ridge at sundown, turning the rocks orange and red. The horse listened, stepped closer. 4 feet now. Luke reached his hand through the fence. Palm up. Empty. Sovereign stretched his neck. His nostrils brushed Luke's fingers' warm breath. Whiskers rough as sandpaper. Then a gunshot. Distant. Maybe a mile away. Some rancher culling coyotes. The stallion bolted. Hit the far side of the corral in 3 strides. His hooves struck the rails hard enough to shake the whole structure. Luke didn't move, didn't flinch, just sat there, hand still extended, palm still open. "It's all right," he said. Quiet, steady. "Just a sound, just noise. Nothing here's going to hurt you." The horse paced, back and forth. His eyes rolled white at the edges, his breath coming fast and ragged. Luke stayed until full dark. The horse never came close again. The next morning, he returned at dawn. The stallion stood at the far end of the corral, 20 feet away. As far from the fence as he could get. Luke sat down anyway. Talked anyway. About the cold, about the work ahead, about things that didn't matter. The horse didn't move. He came back that evening. Same thing. And the next morning, and the next evening. On the third day, Sovereign took one step closer. By the fourth day, he stood 10 feet from the fence, watching, listening. Progress. Slow, but real. On the fifth day, Luke had to go into town. Supplies were running low nails. Wire. Liniment for his hands. He walked the 3 miles, dust coating his boots, sun beating down on his shoulders. The general store was quiet. Luke gathered what he needed, counted out coins on the counter. The shopkeeper wrapped everything in brown paper, tied it with string. Luke was reaching for the door when it swung open. 3 men filled the frame. The one in front was big, broad-shouldered, gut pushing against a silver belt buckle. Hat tilted back to show a face gone red from sun and whiskey. His eyes were small, set close together, and they fixed on Luke like a dog spotting a rabbit. "Well," the man said, "you must be the one working at the widow's place." Luke's hand stayed on the door frame. He didn't step back, didn't step forward. "I'm working there. Yes." The man smiled. No warmth in it. "Working." He drew out the word, made it ugly. "That what they're calling it now?" The 2 men behind him laughed. Short, mean. Luke recognized the type. He'd met them on every ranch in every town. Men who measured themselves by how small they could make everyone else feel. "I'm Colt Brennan," the man said. "I own most of the land around here, including the land that Widow's sitting on soon enough." Luke didn't move. His hand stayed on the door frame, fingers loose against the weathered wood, the package of supplies pressed against his ribs. "Mrs. Hale's business is her own," he said. "I'm just here for nails and wire." Colt stepped closer. The smell of him filled the doorway. Tobacco. Horse sweat. Something sweet, like pomade gone rancid. His boots were polished. His shirt was clean. The silver buckle caught the light. "You don't know much about this town, do you? Drifter?" Colt's voice dropped low. "Martha Hale is sitting on 200 acres with good water rights. Her husband was a fool who spent more time whispering to horses than running a proper operation. Now she's alone, broke, and too stubborn to see what's coming." Luke said nothing. "Smart man would walk away," Colt continued. "Find work somewhere else. Leave the widow to figure out her own mess. I'll keep that in mind." Luke stepped forward. Not aggressive, just moving. His shoulder brushed past Colt's, barely touching, but the bigger man had to shift or be pushed. Colt's hand shot out, grabbed Luke's arm. "I'm talking to you." Luke stopped, looked down at the hand gripping his sleeve, then up at Colt's face. "I heard you. And I've got fence posts to set. You're holding me up." Colt's grip tightened. His knuckles went white against Luke's sleeve. Behind him, his 2 men shifted hands moving toward belt loops, toward the knives sheathed at their hips. The shopkeeper behind the counter had gone pale. His hands gripped the edge of the wood, frozen. Luke kept his voice flat. No heat. No challenge. "You've got something to say about Mrs. Hale. Say it to her face. She's tougher than she looks." Colt's eyes narrowed. The red in his face deepened, spreading down his neck. "You think you're smart?" "No, sir. I think I'm tired." There's a difference. The door behind Colt's men creaked open. A new voice cut through old, dry, carrying the weight of decades. "Gentlemen, is there trouble?" Reverend Thomas Whitfield stood on the porch. He was thin, stooped, his black coat dusty at the shoulders. But his eyes were clear, sharp, taking in everything. Colt released Luke's arm, stepped back. His smile returned, but it sat wrong on his face, too wide, too quick. "No trouble, Reverend. Just getting acquainted with the widow's new hired hand." Whitfield's gaze moved to Luke, lingered, then back to Colt. "I'm sure Mrs. Hale appreciates your concern for her staffing decisions." Something flickered across Colt's face. He touched his hat brim, nodded once. "Reverend." He pushed past Luke, his men following. Their boots rang on the wooden porch, then faded as they crossed the street toward the saloon. Luke exhaled. Slow. Whitfield stepped into the store. His hand rested briefly on Luke's shoulder light. Barely there. "You handled that well." "Didn't handle anything. Just stood there." "Sometimes that's enough." The Reverend's eyes crinkled at the corners. "Sometimes that's the hardest thing of all." Luke picked up his package. The paper had torn where Colt grabbed him, nails pressed against his palm through the gap. "You know Mrs. Hale, 30 years, married her and Jacob in my church, buried their children on the hill behind it." Whitfield's voice softened. "She's a good woman, stubborn as stone, but good." "She seems—" Luke trailed off. He didn't have the word. "Alone," Whitfield finished. "She seems alone. Because she is. Has been since Jacob died." He paused. "That horse was his project. Did she tell you?" "No." "Jacob spent 2 years with that animal. No whip, no spur, just patience. He used to say Sovereign would know the right man when he met him." The Reverend's hand fell away from Luke's shoulder. "Jacob always had plans nobody understood. Letters he sent to breeders, trainers, people all over the territory. Most of them never answered. But Jacob kept writing anyway. Said the right opportunity would come at the right time." Luke filed that away. Letters. Plans nobody understood. 25 cowboys tried to ride that horse last week." Whitfield continued. 25 failed. You haven't tried at all." "No, sir." "Why not?" Luke considered the question. The store was quiet around them, just the tick of the clock on the wall, the creak of floorboards settling. "Horse like that isn't a prize to be won. He's a creature that needs to trust again. You don't earn trust by climbing on someone's back before they're ready." Whitfield studied him. A long moment passed. "Where did you learn that?" "My grandmother. She was Comanche. Married my grandfather when she was 16. He was a horse trader out of San Antonio. She taught him everything he knew." Luke paused. "She taught me too. Before she passed." The Reverend nodded slowly. Something shifted in his expression. Recognition. Maybe, or understanding. "Mrs. Hale doesn't trust easy. Lost too much. But that horse—" He shook his head. "I've watched him for 3 years. He stands at that fence every day, looking toward the barn where Jacob died. Waiting. I always thought he was waiting for Jacob to come back. Maybe I was wrong." Luke didn't answer. There was nothing to say. He walked back to the ranch as the sun dropped toward the ridge. 3 miles of dust and silence. His mind turned over the Reverend's words. Letters Jacob had sent. Plans nobody understood. The horse waiting at the fence. When he reached the property line, he saw Martha on the porch. A woman stood beside her, younger, dark-haired, dressed in clothes too fine for this country. They were talking in low voices, heads bent together. The younger woman looked up as Luke approached. Her eyes widened slightly. Then she touched Martha's arm and slipped away, walking fast toward a buggy parked by the road. Martha watched her go. Her face gave nothing away. Luke stopped at the foot of the porch steps. "Ma'am?" That was Eliza Brennan. Martha's voice was flat. Colt's wife. Luke set down his package. The torn paper fluttered in the evening breeze. "She tell you what happened in town?" "She did?" Silence. The buggy rattled away down the road, dust rising behind it. "You didn't have to do that," Martha said. "Stand up to him. He'll make your life difficult now. Life's already difficult. What's a little more?" Martha's jaw tightened. She looked at him, really looked, the way she had that first morning, taking his measure all over again. "Supper's at 6. Don't be late." She went inside. The door closed softly behind her. Luke stood alone on the porch. The stallion was watching from the corral, ears forward, dark eyes fixed on him. From the direction of town, dust rose in a thin column. Another rider coming, moving fast. Luke squinted against the dying light. The rider wasn't heading for the Brennan Ranch. He was heading straight for Martha's place. The rider was young, 18, maybe 19. One of Colt's men. Luke recognized the silver-studded saddle. The brand on the horse's flank. The boy pulled up hard, dust swirling around him, and thrust out a folded paper. "Message for the widow." Martha stepped onto the porch. She didn't reach for the paper. "Say it." The boy's eyes darted to Luke, then back to Martha. His horse stamped, sensing his rider's nerves. "Mr. Brennan says he's calling in the loan. Payment due in 30 days. Full amount." Martha's face didn't change. But her hands gripped the porch rail, knuckles going white. "What loan?" "The one your husband took out. 3 years back. Mr. Brennan bought the note from the bank last month. Says it's past due. Says you either pay up or sign over the deed." The boy dropped the paper on the porch steps, wheeled his horse around. Gone before Martha could respond. Luke watched him disappear down the road. Then he looked at Martha. She hadn't moved. Her grip on the rail was so tight the wood creaked. "Mrs. Hale?" "Go back to work." "Ma'am?" "I said go." Her voice cracked on the last word, something raw underneath. Luke picked up his package and walked toward the tack shed without looking back. That night at supper, Martha didn't speak. She set the plate in front of him, beans, cornbread, a slice of ham, and stood at the window, staring at nothing. The loan document lay on the table between them, still folded. Luke ate in silence. When he finished, he stood. "I'll be at the corral if you need anything." Martha didn't turn. Luke walked out into the cooling air. The stars were coming up, thick and bright. The stallion stood at the fence, waiting. "Rough day," Luke said, settling against the bottom rail. "For both of us." Sovereign's ears flicked forward. "You ever feel like the world's just waiting to knock you down? Like no matter what you do, there's always someone ready to take what's yours?" The horse stepped closer. 3 feet now. Close enough that Luke could smell him hay, dust, the warm musk of animal. Yeah, me too. Days passed. Luke worked. Fences. The water pump. A section of roof over the tack shed that had started to sag. He fell into a rhythm up before dawn. Work until his muscles screamed. Supper in silence. Evenings at the corral. The stallion came closer each night. 2 feet. Then 1. Then close enough that Luke could run his hand along the black neck, feeling the heat of blood beneath the skin. Martha watched from the porch. She never said anything, but she watched. The town talked. Luke heard it when he went for supplies, the whispers that stopped when he entered, the looks that followed him down the street. Widow's got herself a charity case, probably paying him in more than wages. Won't matter soon. Brennan's going to own that place before winter. Luke ignored it, kept his head down, bought his supplies, left. But the words followed him back to the ranch, burrowed into his skin like ticks. On the 9th day, Martha joined him for supper, actually sat down across from him. The loan document was gone. Luke didn't ask where. "You've been here 9 days," she said. "Haven't tried to ride him once?" "No, ma'am." "Why not?" Luke set down his fork, considered the question. "He's not ready. Neither am I." Martha's eyes narrowed. "What does that mean?" "Means some things can't be rushed. You push too hard, too fast. You break something that can't be fixed." He paused. "Your husband knew that. That's how he trained him. Isn't it patience? Time?" Martha's jaw tightened. Her hands curled into fists on the table. "Don't talk about my husband." "I'm sorry. I didn't mean—" "You don't know anything about him. You've been here 9 days. 9 days? That doesn't give you the right to speak his name." Luke looked down at his plate. The food had gone cold. "You're right. I apologize." Silence. Heavy. Suffocating. Martha pushed back from the table. Her chair scraped against the floor. "Finish your supper. Early morning tomorrow." She left. The door slammed behind her. Luke sat alone in the kitchen. The empty chair across from him. The lamp flickering on the wall. He thought about leaving. Packing his bag and walking out before dawn. He'd done it before dozens of times. When things got complicated. When people got too close. But he didn't move. Outside. The stallion nickered, low, questioning. Luke stood, scraped his plate into the waste bucket, walked out to the corral. Sovereign was waiting at the fence. His head turned as Luke approached. Ears pricked forward. "She's hurting," Luke said, settling against the rail. "Hurting bad. And I don't know how to help." The horse stepped closer. His nose brushed Luke's shoulder. Warm breath fogged in the cool air. "I don't know how to help anyone. That's the truth. I couldn't help my brother. Couldn't save the farm. Couldn't do a single useful thing in 34 years. He pressed his forehead against the horse's neck, closed his eyes. "Maybe I should go, before I make things worse." The stallion stood still, solid, present. From the house, A sound, faint, almost lost in the wind. Crying. Luke lifted his head, looked toward the window where lamplight flickered. Martha's shadow moved behind the glass, bent over, shoulders shaking. He should go to her, say something, do something. But what could he say? What could he possibly offer a woman who had lost everything and was about to lose more? He stayed at the corral until the lamp went dark. Then he walked to the tack shed and lay down on the thin mattress. Sleep didn't come. The next morning, everything changed. Luke arrived at the corral at dawn, same as always, as the stallion was waiting, same as always. But today, something was different. Sovereign stood at the center of the corral, not at the fence. His head was high, ears forward, nostrils flared. His whole body vibrated with tension. Luke climbed the fence slowly, dropped into the corral. "Easy, boy, what's got you worked up?" The horse pawed the ground. Once, twice. His eyes rolled toward the barn, the locked barn with its rusted chain and padlocked doors. Luke followed his gaze. The padlock was hanging open. The chain lay coiled in the dirt. And the barn door stood ajar just an inch. Just a crack, revealing nothing but darkness. Inside. Luke's heart hammered against his ribs. Martha never opened that barn. Hadn't set foot inside in 3 years. She'd told him so herself. So who had he walked toward the barn? Slowly. His boots scuffed against the packed earth. Behind him, Sovereign whinnied high, sharp. A sound of warning. Luke stopped at the door, put his hand on the weathered wood, pushed. The door swung open with a long, low creak. Light spilled into the darkness, illuminating dust motes that swirled like living things. And there, in the center of the barn floor, stood Martha. She was barefoot. Her nightgown was streaked with dirt, her hair loose around her shoulders. She was staring at something on the ground, a dark stain on the wooden planks, old and faded but still visible. The place where Jacob had died. Mrs. Hale, she didn't turn, didn't move. Her voice came out thin, cracked, barely human. "I can't pay the loan. I can't save this place. I can't even open this door without falling apart." Luke stepped inside. The smell hit him old hay, dust, something else underneath, something that might have been death. 3 years gone. "Ma'am." 23 years. Her voice was hollow now, empty. 23 years I worked this land, buried 3 babies on that hill, held my husband while his heart gave out. And now Colt Brennan is going to take it all because I was too proud to ask for help. She looked at him then. Her eyes were red-rimmed, swollen, filled with something Luke recognized. Shame. Not grief. Not anger. Shame. The worst kind of poison a person could carry. "Everyone in town knows," she whispered. "They know I'm going to lose everything. They're laughing. Right now. They're sitting in that saloon, laughing at the fat widow who thought she could run a ranch alone." "Mrs. Hale, that's not... Don't." She held up her hand. Her fingers were trembling. "Don't tell me it's not true. I heard them myself, yesterday, when I went to town. They didn't even bother to whisper. Her knees buckled. She caught herself on a support beam, but her strength was gone. She slid down, down, until she was sitting in the dirt, her nightgown pooling around her, sitting in the same spot where her husband had died. Luke didn't move, didn't speak. What could he possibly say to a woman who had just fallen into the lowest place a person could go outside? Sovereign screamed a wild, tearing sound that echoed off the hills. And somewhere in the distance, hoofbeats, many hoofbeats, coming fast. Luke walked 5 miles before he stopped. The sun had set an hour ago. Stars scattered across the sky like spilled salt. His boots scraped against the hard-packed road. Each step taking him further from the ranch, from the horse, from her. He found a spot by a creek, different cottonwoods, but water all looked the same in the dark. He sat down, didn't build a fire, didn't unroll his bedding. His brother's voice came back to him, the way it always did when he was too tired to keep it out. You always said a Harper doesn't quit on people. Said that was the family way. Luke stared at the water, black and silver in the moonlight. She told me to leave, he said out loud. To no one. To Tommy. To himself. Since when do you take orders from scared people? Luke picked up a stone, turned it over in his palm, smooth from years of water running over it. Can't force someone to accept help. No. But you can be close enough when they figure out they need it. He threw the stone. It disappeared into the dark water without a sound. Tommy had been 16 when he died. 16 years old with a smile that could light up a barn and a stubborn streak wider than the Rio Grande. He'd wanted to prove himself on that mare. Wanted to show Luke he wasn't a kid anymore. Luke had let him try. Told himself the boy would be fine. He wasn't fine. Luke had held him while the light went out of his eyes. Felt the exact moment when his brother stopped being his brother and became something else. Something empty. Something gone. 10 years of running since then. 10 years of never staying long enough to lose anyone else. And now here he was, running again. Because a widow told him to go. And he was too much of a coward to stay. She's hurting, Tommy's voice said. Gentle now. The way he'd always been gentle. Even when Luke didn't deserve it. Hurting worse than you. And you're walking away because it's easier than watching. Luke stood up. His knees popped. His back ached. I hate when you're right. He turned around. Started walking back toward the ranch. 3 hours later, he saw the lamp burning in Martha's window. He didn't go to the house. Not yet. Instead, he walked to the corral. The stallion was there, standing at the fence, looking toward the barn. The same spot. The same vigil. I'm back, Luke said quietly. Couldn't stay away. Sovereign's ears flicked toward him. The horse didn't move closer, but he didn't move away either. Luke sat down against the fence, waited for dawn. He must have dozed, because when he opened his eyes, the sky was pink at the edges, and Reverend Whitfield's buggy was parked beside the house. Luke stood, brushed dirt from his trousers, walked toward the porch, through the window. He could see them, Martha and the Reverend, sitting at the kitchen table. Martha's head was bowed. Her shoulders shook. Luke stopped. He shouldn't interrupt. Whatever was happening in there, it wasn't his business, but he couldn't leave either. So he waited. The door opened 20 minutes later. Whitfield stepped onto the porch, saw Luke, and nodded once. No surprise on his face, as if he'd expected to find him there. "She's in the barn," the Reverend said quietly. "First time in 3 years she's gone inside." Luke's chest tightened. "Is she?" "She's doing what she should have done a long time ago." Whitfield put his hand on Luke's arm. "Go to her. She needs someone right now. Not me. Someone who understands what it's like to carry the dead." He climbed into his buggy and drove away, without another word. Luke walked to the barn. The doors stood open. Morning light spilled across the threshold, illuminating dust motes that swirled in the still air. The smell hit him first: old hay. Dust. Something underneath that might have been lost given physical form. Martha sat in the center of the barn floor. Her legs were folded beneath her. Her hands rested on her knees. She was staring at a dark stain on the wooden planks, faded now, 3 years old, but still visible. The place where Jacob had died. Sovereign stood at the barn entrance. He hadn't come inside, but he was watching, ears forward, body tense. "Mrs. Hale?" Martha didn't look up. "I told you to leave." "You did? But you're here." "I am." Silence. The barn creaked around them. Old wood settling. Old ghosts shifting. "Why?" Luke walked toward her. Slow. The floorboards groaned under his weight. He stopped a few feet away. Lowered himself to the ground so they were at eye level. "Because I've been walking for 10 years, he said. "Town to town, ranch to ranch. Telling myself it was easier to keep moving. Telling myself I didn't deserve to stop." Martha's hands curled into fists on her knees. "What changed?" "Nothing." Luke shook his head. "Everything. I got 5 miles down the road and my brother started talking to me. He's been dead 10 years, but he still won't shut up." Something crossed Martha's face. Not quite a smile, but close. "Jacob does that too. I hear him in the morning. When I'm making coffee, I hear him at night. When the house is too quiet." Her voice cracked. "I hear him loudest in this barn. That's why I couldn't come inside." "What did the Reverend say to you?" Martha was quiet for a long moment. Her eyes stayed on the stain. "He said Jacob loved me because I was the toughest woman he'd ever met." "But tough isn't the same as closed off." She exhaled. "He said I was burying the chance for something good because I was afraid of losing it." "Are you afraid, terrified?" The word came out raw, scraped from somewhere deep. "I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to let someone in again. Every time I try, I see Jacob lying right here, and I remember what it felt like when they carried him out." Luke didn't touch her, didn't reach for her hand, just sat there, close enough that she could feel his presence. "I held my brother while he died," he said. "He was 16. I was 20. I let him ride a horse that wasn't ready because he wanted to prove himself, and I was too proud to say no." His voice was steady, but his hands weren't. "I've spent 10 years telling myself I couldn't get close to anyone again, because if I did, I might lose them, and I couldn't survive that twice." Martha looked at him, really looked. Her eyes were red-rimmed, swollen, but there was something else in them now. Recognition. "So what do we do?" Luke almost laughed. It came out as a breath instead. "I don't know. I've never gotten this far before. Usually I'm gone by now." But you came back. I came back. Silence. The sun climbed higher. Light crept across the barn floor, inch by inch, until it touched Martha's hands. Jacob sent letters, she said quietly, before he died. To breeders, trainers, people all over the territory. He had plans for Sovereign, big plans. She paused. I found them last week, in a box I hadn't opened since the funeral. He was trying to build something for us, something that would last. Did any of them answer? I don't know. I was too scared to find out. Luke nodded slowly. Maybe we find out together. Whatever comes, we face it. You don't have to do this alone anymore. Martha's hands unclenched, her fingers spread flat against her knees. I don't know how to trust, she said. I forgot. Neither do I. But maybe we figure it out as we go. Might be easier than trying alone. A sound from the barn entrance. Sovereign stepped inside one hoof, then another, then his whole body. He walked past Luke, past Martha, and stopped at the spot where Jacob had died. The horse lowered his head, pressed his nose against the stained wood. Then he let out a breath long, slow, deep, and turned toward Martha. She reached up. Her hand touched his muzzle. The horse stood still, letting her. He's saying goodbye, Luke said quietly. To Jacob. He's been waiting 3 years to do it. Martha's shoulders began to shake. But this time, she wasn't alone. Luke stayed where he was, close enough to matter, far enough to give her space. Outside, the sound of hooves on the road, multiple horses, moving fast. Luke stood, walked to the barn door, shielded his eyes against the morning sun. Colt Brennan and 4 of his men were riding toward the ranch. And behind them, a man in a black suit carrying a leather satchel. Colt Brennan swung down from his saddle. His boots hit the dirt with a heavy thud. The man in the black suit followed thin, pale, clutching his leather satchel like it might protect him. Mrs. Hale. Colt's voice carried across the yard. Time to settle up? Martha walked out of the barn. Her dress was dusty, her hair loose around her shoulders. She looked like she'd been crying. She looked like she didn't care who knew it. Luke followed, stopped 3 paces behind her. I told you, Colt said, eyes flicking to Luke. Smart man would have walked away. He's not smart, Martha said. Neither am I. Colt laughed. Short, ugly. That much is clear. He gestured to the man in the suit. This is Mr. Hartley. He's a lawyer from Phoenix. I bought your husband's loan from the bank 6 weeks ago. $3,000. Past due. Hartley stepped forward. His voice was thin, reedy. Mrs. Hale, foreclosure proceedings will commence unless full payment is received within 30 days. Mr. Brennan has generously offered to purchase the property at fair market value, which would... No. The word came out flat, final. Colt's smile tightened. You don't have a choice. You can't pay. Everyone knows it. Maybe not. Martha's hands were shaking, but her voice wasn't. But I'm not signing anything. Not today. Not ever. Then I'll take it through the courts. I'll drag your name through every saloon and church social from here to Tucson. Everyone will know the widow Hale couldn't hold on to what her husband built. They already think that. Martha stepped forward. Her bare feet pressed into the dirt. They've been laughing at me for 3 years. The crazy widow with the wild horse. The woman too proud to ask for help. Too stubborn to sell. She stopped 3 feet from Colt. You think I care what they say anymore? Colt's face reddened. The vein at his temple pulsed. "You're making a mistake." "Maybe, but it's mine to make." From the road, dust rose. Dust. Another buggy approaching. Moving fast? Luke turned. Reverend Whitfield was driving, his old horse laboring against the pace. Behind him sat a woman, Eliza Brennan, her face pale and determined. The buggy stopped. Whitfield climbed down, envelope in hand. "This came to the church yesterday," he said, walking toward Martha. "From San Antonio. I would have brought it sooner, but I couldn't find you." Martha took the envelope. Her hands trembled as she tore it open. Luke watched her face as she read, watched the color drain, then return, watched something shift behind her eyes. "What is it?" Colt demanded. Martha looked up. Her voice was steady now. "It's from a man named William Garrett, a horse breeder. Jacob wrote to him 3 years ago before he died. He was offering Sovereign stud services." Colt snorted. "That horse is worthless. Nobody can ride him." "Mr. Garrett doesn't want to ride him. He wants to breed him." Martha held up the letter. $500 for first breeding rights. 500 more when the foal is born healthy. And a standing contract for future offspring. Silence. The lawyer's face went pale. Colt's jaw tightened. "That's not enough to pay the loan." "No," Martha said. "But it's enough to start. Enough to make payments. Enough to fight you in court until you're sick of seeing my face." Eliza Brennan stepped down from the buggy. She walked toward her husband, but she didn't stand beside him. She stood apart. "Colt," she said quietly, "let it go. Stay out of this." "No." Eliza's voice was soft but firm. "I've stayed out of too much for too long. Mrs. Patterson, the Dawson family, all the people you've pushed off their land." She looked at Martha. "I'm sorry, Ma, for all of it." Colt's face went dark. His hands clenched at his sides. "We're leaving," he said to his men. "This isn't over. Mrs. Hale, not by a long shot." He mounted his horse. His men followed. The lawyer scrambled into his saddle, satchel clutched to his chest. They rode away. Dust rose behind them, thick and choking, then slowly settled back to earth. Martha stood in the yard, letter in hand. Her whole body was shaking now. Luke walked to her, stopped an arm's length away. "Jacob did this," she whispered. 3 years ago. He set this up before he died." He was thinking ahead, even when he couldn't see the road. Martha laughed. A broken sound. Half sob. "I almost lost everything. Almost threw it all away because I was too scared to open an envelope. But you didn't." Luke's voice was quiet. "You're still here. Still standing." Sovereign walked out of the barn. He crossed the yard past Luke, past Martha, and stopped at the corral fence. His head lifted. His ears pricked forward. For the first time in 3 years, he looked like a horse waiting for something good instead of something lost. 3 months later, the ranch looked different. Fences stood straight. The barn had fresh paint. A vegetable garden grew beside the house. Tomatoes coming in red and ripe. Sovereign had sired 2 foals, both black, both strong. Ranchers came from 50 miles away to see them. The horse that had been called Devil Spawn now drew crowds for different reasons. Colt Brennan's ranch struggled. His foreman quit. His wife moved to her sister's house in Tucson. The whispers in town shifted direction. Luke and Martha worked side by side. They didn't talk much. They didn't need to. Every evening, they sat on the porch, 2 chairs now, side by side. "You ever think about what happens next?" Martha asked one night. The sun was dropping behind the ridge, painting the sky orange and gold. Luke considered the question. "I think about getting through tomorrow. Doing it well. That's about as far as I plan." "Not much of a strategy." "No. But it got me here." Silence. The wind moved through the cottonwoods. "Jacob had plans," Martha said quietly. "Big ones. He wanted to build something that would last 100 years. What did you want?" She didn't answer right away. The question hung between them. "Someone to sit on this porch with. Watch the sun go down. Talk about nothing important. How's that working out?" Martha almost smiled. "Ask me in 10 years. In the pasture, Sovereign lifted his head. One of the foals bumped against his side, demanding attention. The stallion lowered his head, nuzzled the young one, then went back to grazing. Martha reached across the space between their chairs. Her fingers found Luke's, rough against rough, calloused against calloused. Neither of them spoke. The stars came out, one by one, scattered across a sky so wide it made everything else seem small. Some things don't need words. They just need time and patience. And 2 people stubborn enough to stay. There's a quiet that settles after a story like this one. Not emptiness, something fuller. The way a room feels after a long conversation has ended, and everyone has said what needed saying. Many of us have carried things we couldn't name. Grief that didn't fit into words. Love that arrived too late. Or stayed too long. Or never quite found its footing. Some of us have stood at fences of our own, waiting for something we couldn't explain a sign. A second chance. A reason to stay when leaving would have been easier. Perhaps you've known a Martha. Perhaps you've been a Luke. Perhaps there's a door somewhere in your own life that's been closed longer than you meant to keep it shut. It's all right. Not everything needs opening today. Some things just need time and patience and the quiet faith that staying might be worth more than we know. The weight you carry doesn't need to be understood to be honored. It doesn't need to be fixed to be held. Thank you for sitting with us through this story. Thank you for staying until the end.